Welcome everyone to Williams Mullen's COVID-19 Comeback Plan video series. My name is Janet Cho and I'm a partner in Williams Mullen's intellectual property practice. And I'm joined today by my colleague Edward White, or Ed, who is also a partner in our intellectual property practice. Hello and welcome, Ed.
Hey, Janet.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Today, we are going to talk about how you can increase your company's value by protecting, building, and maximizing your trademarks. So I'll get started. If I had to, sort of distill this down into the important points, I would say as you look to maximize your trademarks or your brands, assess, protect, enforce, and evaluate. And by assess, I mean take a look at the marks that you've been using, the marks that you're considering using, and really give some thought to where you want to deploy your resources. As businesses come back online after COVID-19, I think everyone's very, very mindful of their finances and the resources that they want to spend. So as you look at your marks, take a look at maybe what are some of the marks you don't want to invest in anymore. There may be some that just are not timely, they're really stale, and these are just not things that you want to use to promote your business. So perhaps you make a conscious decision that these 2 marks or these 10 marks, however many there may be, these are ones that you've decided you will not invest your financial and perhaps your human capital in anymore. The flip side of that is perhaps there are some marks that you've been considering, or you're in the process of this creative effort to build new marks. And so that may be where you want to invest, but give some thought to where your resources are best spent. Take a look and assess, where your mark resources may be best used. Once you've decided on what that assessment process brings, think about how you want to protect your marks. And a very important part of that is conducting due diligence. So once you've selected that mark, or as you're considering your list of finalists, conduct what we would recommend for sure, a trademark search, so you understand the landscape of risks surrounding launching with a new mark, but also consider filing to protect that mark, either at the United States Patent and Trademark Office or perhaps with your state trademark register, depending on the scope of use for that mark. But certainly protect your mark. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't say, once you've done your due diligence, start using the mark so that you can start accruing rights in it. And then along with protecting your mark, going hand in hand with that is the enforcement piece. I would say internally, make sure you train your personnel so that they know how the mark should be used, how it should be presented. And then externally, monitoring the marketplace to make sure that there isn't anyone who is using the same or similar mark. And if there is, consider what you may need to do to enforce your rights. And then finally, evaluating this whole scheme, meaning you may want to do all of this on a regular basis, sort of building it into your brand protection plan. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but just doing this assessment piece on a regular basis, whether it be every year or every 6 months, and then doing all that you need to do to protect and enforce your rights in the marks that you do decide you're going to commence or use as you emerge from COVID-19. So those are the things that I would recommend in terms of if there's a takeaway, if there's a distillation, those are the things I would recommend. And I know, Ed, you have some thoughts on perhaps maybe the companion piece, which is your intellectual property agreements and how best to collaborate when you're in that creative process, things to think about, cautionary tales as you're in that creative process. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Janet. I think your point is very well taken. As we come out of the COVID lockdown and we start to opening up our businesses again, we do want to take a good accounting of our intellectual property assets. And so brands are obviously an important part of that. And it's everything you touched on, I think, is very helpful. I will drill onto a few of the things that I've been seeing from clients recently, which is that many clients, and this is very laudable, have been working towards COVID-19 solutions. So I've seen clients who are creating personal protective equipment or vaccines in the biopharm area, or pandemic services to provide services to those people who are affected by the pandemic, who are locked in, et cetera, et cetera. And some of these products and services certainly have intellectual property value. There are IP assets that underlie these products and services. And in cases where it's an individual business that's moving forward with these things, then by all means, they want to make sure that they're doing the right things to register and enforce, protect, and potentially monetize those IP assets. In some cases, and again, this is also laudable, we have seen clients who are moving at incredible speed, who have been working with partners and collaborating on things like vaccines. In those cases, while we are happy that they're moving forward quickly for all of us, we do want to make sure that the intellectual property underlying issues are tied up so that there aren't potential problems down the road. So for example, is there a co-ownership agreement regarding the intellectual property assets? Which party will own the intellectual property in the future? Do those parties need to execute assignment agreements in order to make sure that that happens? In the case of a patent, and if there's an individual inventor, should that individual inventor be assigning those patent rights to either an entity or to a collaboration or a partnership of companies that's working on some COVID-19 technology? And so these are the things that I think people should be thinking about as they come out of COVID-19 with any COVID-19 products and services they're working with. The other thing that I think is important for our clients to think about is how do my existing intellectual property agreements look at this point? If, for example, I've entered into licensor-licensee relationships, are my licensees using their trademarks, to use your example, properly? Or have they been using it throughout the lockdown? Or have they had to close down such that I'm concerned that the lack of continuous use might affect my asset? Have my royalty streams been coming in uninterrupted, such that I can say that my license is not a naked license? And if it has been interrupted, is that interrupted use excusable non-use? And what, if anything, do they need to do with these licensees going forward then to make sure that they're either forgiven or that revenue comes in at a later date, so that the elements of the license are met? And then the last thing I would say with regard to future intellectual property agreements would be, as we draft these new agreements, if they're an assignment, if they're a license, if they're a collaboration agreement, are we making sure that we're now looking at things like pandemics? I think before COVID-19 hit us, we all knew what a pandemic is or was, but it wasn't something we necessarily dealt with day in, day out. Now, on the heels of this lockdown, on the heel of the quarantine, it has certainly touched everybody. So do we need in our future agreements things like force majeure clauses that show, or that very specifically identify pandemics or quarantines as conditions that would alleviate or forgive non-performance in a license or an IP contract? So again, looking at the current IP assignments and agreements is important. Keeping our lessons learned in mind for the future is also very important. So, those are a few of the thoughts I had to dovetail onto yours. I would just say, to tie this up, Janet and I want to thank everybody for your time today. Please be sure to visit williamsmullen.com for more ideas or best practices in the coming weeks. We'll be posting a variety of resources to help you as you recover and as you come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. If you have any questions on today's tips or anything we've said, please, by all means, feel free to reach out to Janet Cho or Ed White at Williams Mullen, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.